You've read the title. Now, let me tell you something. I hate homophobia. Notice how I didn't say I hate homophobes, because, well, I don't. Or at least to a certain extent, I don't. Homophobes do argue out of bad faith most of the time, but I still don't think they're bad people unless they've, done something to a gay person. My point is, hate the sin, not the sinner. And that quote is quite useful to the point of this video. Religion plays a huge part in homophobia, yet is totally bogus. Leviticus 18:22 is the iconic verse all homophobes use to support their argument, and it is flawed to use religion as a weaponized force in debate when it should have no bearing, but that's irrelevant for the time being. Do not have sex with a man as with a woman. It is detestable. Now, let's talk about how this line should already be taken with a grain of salt. Everyone, the Bible wasn't made by God. In fact, it was made by his followers, and let's keep in mind, his followers were probably bigoted. Let's remember that. Another thing, are we not going to talk about how this line completely contradicts his thousands of statements saying, love thy neighbor? I think it should be considered that this is one line supporting homophobia to the thousands upon thousands of verses that say otherwise. Let's pick apart the line itself. What does it truly mean? Well, I must admit it means what it says. But let's not forget that the Bible also prohibits such acts as crossbreeding cattle and mixing fabrics. I wish I was joking. To take the Bible as the final say in everything is to prevent almost all logical thinking and replace it with superstition. This was also in the Old Testament, one of the most outdated pieces of literature ever, and no, I just don't mean that in age. It is old-fashioned, literally. Like I said, it still prohibited the use of crossbred cattle. This is also not to mention that religion should have no place in reasonable debates. Religion is not an excuse to be intolerant, just like Nazism wasn't an excuse to slaughter millions of Jewish people. And don't call me ridiculous for that comparison, they are both widely used sentiments that are a guise for intolerance and bigotry at times. As I was saying, religion is not and never should be a replacement for logical thinking. Speaking of logical thinking, let's talk about that. The logical fallacies in homophobia are prevalent and should always be criticized. Let's crack open their first argument. Being gay reduces the population, since you can't have children. This one is ridiculous, frankly, although if I acknowledged ridiculousness with every argument, we'd be here a while. It only takes a couple seconds to realize why this argument is so dumb. We're already overpopulated. That's not to say that having a kid right now is bad, or you should turn gay, but not having one won't hurt anything. In fact, it will help. Another question you might want to ask is, would you allow a same-sex couple who are infertile to get married? Or better yet, would you allow these two men to be single on their own? Or women, perhaps? It's pretty clear that this argument has no bearing on reality, since having a child isn't a requirement whatsoever. Here's the next one. Homosexuality is unnatural. Once again, an argument that doesn't require much thinking to take down. What you're watching this on right now is unnatural. The clothes you're wearing are unnatural. If you're in a building right now, that's unnatural. None of these things are natural, yet you still use them. Speaking of which, homosexuality is actually found in nature, believe it or not. Many animals have homosexual members. It's still natural, but homophobes don't seem to think so. Here's one of my favorite arguments, just because of how ridiculous the claim is. They're gonna push it on the kids, or gay parents turn kids gay. This is just plain false. You can't push a sexuality on kids. Sexuality isn't a choice, and by that notion, by the way, is extremely important. I see homophobia on the same level as racism. They're both things that people are discriminated against that they have no influence in. Anywho, having gay parents isn't gonna turn a kid gay. Having two moms isn't gonna turn a girl lesbian, and having two dads isn't gonna turn a boy gay. The only reason there would be any deviation in sexuality for kids with gay parents is that they may be more aware and honest about their sexuality, and thus won't repress it and hide it with a mask of homophobia. And this is a good thing. Another issue with this argument is that nothing is inherently wrong with being gay, so why would it even be a concern? Also, isn't that what straight people do? In movies and TV, you always see straight people kissing. Homophobes see no issue with this, but when it's a gay couple, that's when they start to care. Let's just talk about what I mentioned earlier. Bad faith arguing. When homophobes say, well, I wouldn't hate them if they didn't do this or that, what they really mean is that they had a preconceived aversion to homosexuality, and they found unstable arguments to support this pre-existing notion, not the other way around. Everyone without the mindset of a child knows that being gay hurts no one. So it doesn't matter if men like men or women like women. Let me remind you of something. Being gay isn't a choice. So just as if I insulted you for being straight or being white or being black or being a man or being a woman, you're being discriminated against for something you can't control, something you had no say in. Think about that for a second. That's a horrifying thing to go through. These people just like a different sex and get bullied for it. So, just like it's ridiculous and child to hate someone for the color of the pigment in their skin, let's consider for a moment how child and ridiculous it is to hate someone for liking someone of the same sex. Does it really matter? Does it really hurt anyone? Keep these questions in mind in your day-to-day life, and maybe you'll realize that being tolerant is a lot easier than brushing off any semblance of maturity. And as always, thanks for watching.